to what is our kind of official first week of class of the semester. Last week was more about familiarizing yourself with the class, making sure that you are aware of the expectations set forth for you, and how we're going to proceed. But this week we're actually diving into our course material. Each week I will be posting a brief video lecture. A lot of what I say reiterates what you'll be reading, but sometimes people benefit from when things are put in a different way, or whenever somebody can articulate certain ideas or theories or concepts, as opposed to just reading it. Hopefully this will help reinforce what you're reading and provide some clarification. That's kind of the point. So we're just going to dive right in. It makes sense that for the first week of class, we are going to be focusing on the sociological perspective, learning what it is and beginning to develop that lens through which we can see the world. So McIntyre provides a definition for the discipline of sociology. She defines it as the scientific study of interactions and relations among human beings. Sociology can also be thought of as a way to view the world. It's not a very well-known discipline, and there are reasons why that is. And the main one is because the sociological perspective varies so widely from how we tend to think of the world, or how we're taught to think about the world around us. So American culture is permeated with this idea of individualism, the idea that people pursue their own goals and follow their own ideas. You've probably heard this in one form or another across your life. The idea that people set goals and then they engage in behaviors that either help them achieve those goals, or they engage in behaviors that prevent them from achieving those goals, or maybe they don't set goals in the first place, and that's why they end up where they're at in life. Sociologists tend to resist the idea of individualism, and instead look at the social world around us, the social environment, this idea that social forces influence our behaviors and the availability of choices that we're given in life. So keep in mind, it's not necessarily that sociologists completely dismiss individualism or are completely dismissive of the idea of free will, but rather we tend to focus on the structure of society, these external social forces that shape our identities and our beliefs, our behaviors, our values, our interactions with one another, and how the institutions we're surrounded by play a major role in all of those things. Because the idea here is that depending on your social location, depending on your experiences in life, certain behaviors are going to be easier to choose than others. Certain choices are going to be available to you, whereas others may not be presented with those same options. Higher education is a really good example to consider here. From an individualistic orientation, most people tend to say something along the lines of people who go to college do so because they want to, because they set that goal early on in life, and then they work towards that goal, and then eventually find themselves in a college classroom. Sociologists, however, might want to take a little bit of a broader perspective and consider what goes into shaping an individual's desire or lack of desire to go to college, or the resources and opportunities available to some and not to others that may make it easier or more difficult in obtaining a higher education. Many of the topics we cover in class will examine these social forces, and so we'll look to see how they shape our individual behaviors and our interactions, and how they influence how we relate to one another. Now, because the sociological perspective tends to be in stark contrast to this idea of individualism, there is an inherent skeptical component to my discipline. We tend to question everyday assumptions that other people may take for granted. So, for example, we question the naturalness of masculinity and femininity. Later on, towards the end of the semester, we'll talk about the social construction of gender. And the idea here is basically that the behaviors, the values, the traits we associate with masculinity, the behaviors, values, and traits we associate with femininity are not necessarily biologically derived. Rather, they are socially constructed. They're a product of our society. And because there is a component of inequality and oppression associated with those qualities, in that masculinity tends to be more highly valued than femininity, we should question them. We should be skeptical, not only of how we socially construct those things, but of which ones we value more than the others. Moving on, something else to mention here is this idea of inconvenient facts. And I know you all will be reading about this. Inconvenient facts are defined as pieces of evidence that contradict what you have always believed and or want to believe about the social world. So because of sociology's inherent skepticism and focus on the social environment, a lot of the research that we engage in, a lot of our findings can sometimes yield inconvenient facts, facts that contradict maybe what you thought was going on in society. And so, for example, an inconvenient fact might be that America is a land of limitless opportunity. Well, sociological research actually points to something quite differently. It shows that American life has a significant degree of inequality and stratification, and that not every individual has an equal chance in succeeding as compared to others. Now, if you believe in America as the land of opportunity, yet you are presented with research that suggests something else, then that research may be an inconvenient fact. I bring this to your attention, I emphasize this in this week's video lecture, just to recognize that at certain points throughout the semester, we may be talking about things or learning about things that make you a little bit uncomfortable, that create a little bit of unease. First, I want to recognize that those feelings, those emotions are perfectly normal and to be expected. Whenever we think we have a good beat on things and we're presented with something that kind of rattles our cages, that can create some feelings of uncomfortableness. And two, something else to point out, this is something that I tend to do at the beginning of all of my classes, is to suggest that even though we tend to associate being uncomfortable with a negative feeling, or we kind of think of it as being icky, nobody likes to be uncomfortable, in a lot of ways, across a variety of areas of life, it is through uncomfortableness that we grow as people. And that's never more true than it is in a college classroom. You are here to be challenged, to be pushed, to exercise mental dexterity, and to open your mind to entertaining other perspectives. So when you come across an inconvenient fact this semester, and most of you will at one point or another, I encourage you to work through any feelings of anger or dismissiveness that you may be experiencing, and to appreciate feeling uncomfortable in that moment, and maybe reflect on what it is exactly that you're learning, or how you're growing as a person and as a scholar. I'm going to stop there because I think I've hit kind of the main points, and video lectures tend to be most effective when they're kept short. Please do not hesitate to reach out. If you have any questions, I'm extremely responsive to email. That's kind of why I'm good in an online classroom. So don't ever hesitate. If you have any questions, concerns, or comments, I'm welcome any and everything that you have to send my way. But for now, I will say goodbye and good luck in completing the first real forums of the semester. I look forward to reading your work. Bye.